let's get settled in, everyone, for tonight's installment in our lecture and film showcase of the work of Abbas Kiarostami. The film we'll be watching tonight will be, you hopefully by now seen a few of his films from different periods, but you may have already established a certain idea of what a Kiarostami film represents. And I think SHIRIN, while in some sense embodying a certain continuity with some of the principles and philosophies behind Kiarostami's filmmaking, is also, in terms of his career at this point, film made in 2008, also a distinct shift in formal terms for Kiarostami. So we'll see a film of his where he gets a little bit more experimental, a little bit more meditative as well. But to help us kind of navigate this very fascinating work, we have a very special guest today, Negar Mottahedeh, coming to us all the way from Duke University in North Carolina via New York and via Paris, actually. But she is professor of literature at Duke University. And Duke University, its literature department, let's say, takes a very broad understanding of the, let's say, definition of literature. There are people who work on all different kinds of, let's say, media, different kinds of methodologies there. In the case of Negar, she really works in finding kind of interdisciplinary and feminist contributions to both Middle Eastern studies, so kind of regional focus, as well as film and media studies, her kind of, let's say, aesthetic focus. In addition to her academic activities, she's also a cultural critic and theorist, and she's written numerous books, latter examples of which include Iran Election, #Solidarity and the Transformation of Online Life, from 2015, published by Stanford University Press, and from 2019, also initially appearing in English with Stanford University Press, Whisper Tapes, Kate Millett in Iran, a book which only just recently has actually received a Farsi translation, thanks to the efforts of Arash, who's sitting here in the room. And we have some freshly minted copies of the Farsi translation of Whisper Tapes with us. So really exciting development, both I think in Negar's own scholarship, but also in, whoops, we've lost the, hopefully we get that back. Anyway, yeah, so, this book, a very fascinating project because it's taking the cassette tapes that Kate Millett, the feminist theorist, actually recorded while she was visiting Iran in the kind of, revolutionary period in 1979, and kind of works with that as this kind of archival materials. And in that sense, I think also has a very interesting connection to the film we'll be watching today, SHIRIN, which is definitely focused on Iranian women's lives, their experiences, and also their kind of, I guess, faces, their bodies, their physical presence on the screen. That's all I wanted to say, but please join me now in welcoming Negar Mottahedeh up to the lectern. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Daniel. That's a lovely introduction. I'm going to show you a bunch of clips, and so please bear with me while I navigate the PowerPoint and the various clips. I'm going to do a bit of an introduction before I get to the question of SHIRIN, and this is a discussion of a recent book on Abbas Kiarostami that I wanted to have with you around SHIRIN. So I'll start here. Abbas Kiarostami's contemporary, the auteur Bahram Beyzai, made the short film The Journey 2 years after Kiarostami's short Bread and Ali, the film Kiarostami called the mother of all of his films. Beyzai made The Journey in 1972 for Kanun, the Iranian State Institute for the Intellectual Development and Education of Children. Like Kiarostami's Kanun film, Bread and Ali, The Journey follows a boy on a mission. And I want to show you a clip of that. Ooh. The young boy is in search of his parents along the wastelands on the outskirts of Tehran. And what unfolds through his movements in these landscapes on screen, where he is accompanied by his loyal mate, is not a geography per se, but an imaginal world, a sacred geometry, in other words, in which cars and train tracks and abandoned wheels and carriages and ladders and doors and street signs stage a world devoid of conventional directions, and in which everyone seems to be asleep, while the wind itself addresses the wakeful children who, in their quest, configured by a dream, go in search of those who are waiting, wakeful for their arrival. This world of the boy's journey is the world in which is the world to which the psychoanalyst Joan Kopchak points in her new book on Kiarostami called The Cloud, a world that she writes is more important than man, in which actions and drama are not determining, and things, details, and their rhythmic ornamental organization, like that of a Persian miniature, manifest another dimension. This indeterminate dimension, this outside, Kopchak claims, falls within man, is occulted there. And it is the great advance of Abbas Kiarostami's 1987 feature film, Where is the Friend's Home? Where is the Friend's House? That it makes this indeterminate vastness of the world evident in and through the actions of the young protagonist, she writes. In Kiarostami, however, the image itself loses steam, Joan Kopchak claims. It goes weak-kneed in the face of its didactic function. And just as a reminder, the deixis is the I, you, here, and now of a statement. So in a conversation between two people, and this applies also to the cinema. So it's the I of the film and the here and now that speaks to you. So she says that in Kiarostami, the films go weak-kneed in the face of the didactic function. And I think it's here that Joan Kopchak's take on Kiarostami stumbles over itself as she writes about Where is the Friend's House, that what is astonishing about the scene of the boy's second arrival to the friend's house is that the scene makes us witnesses of the image's failure to declare this is the friend's house. Film theorist, she points out, will recall that Christian Metz, in an attempt to clarify the way cinema could be said to function as a language, insisted that individual images ought to be regarded not as words, but as statements. An image of a revolver, for example, she writes, should be taken as a declaration, this is a revolver. My point, she continues, is that this scene in particular, and Kiarostami's work more particularly, utters a retort. I refute Metz, for far from implying that the image fails in its task, that it is weak or unreliable, the image in the films of Kiarostami refuses to bow down or make itself subservient to reality. What the film critic Pascal Bonitzer will come to dub as the effet de voici for Metz's Here Is, in Here is a Revolver, glosses over the term poetic in Metz's own discussion of the shot. The shot, Metz writes, is much like a sentence and not like a word. Indeed, it is the smallest poetic entity, and thus, Metz later clarifies, a book is not a list of words, while it's true that each word is unconnected to what it signifies, it remains that the choice and ordering of the words and sentences confers upon the sentence something like a unique and living countenance, different each time, or like a singular respiration, which can maintain secret relations with the tangible features of the real-world event that the sentence sets out to evoke. It is this play of the poetic entity of the shot that is Kiarostami's forte, and in my viewing of his films. For as I read Metz, what I see him attempting to sort out is this distinction within the filmic image of two levels in which the filmic image communicates. So Metz articulates these two levels as the level of the story, and which must then, he says, be distinguished from the term discourse. And what Metz would come to elaborate as the filmic enunciation. So the story or the film's narrative appears on screen as if it's coming from nowhere. But that is mere poetics. It's a false appearance. The story, the film's narrative, is always enunciated. It must be enunciated by the technology of film and by the film industry in order to communicate meaning to the receiver of the film. So while filmic enunciation cannot but declare what it registers as material reality through light and shadow, and through the dialectic markers of the here, I, you, and the now, what occurs on the narrative level can wax poetic and lie in its declarations. So Jacques Lacan would call this in his seminar 11, the liar's paradox, where he proposes that we recognize that this statement has a dual status. I may say that I'm lying, for example, but one half of that enunciation, or one half of that enunciative I that says I'm lying is not lying at all. So it is also within, and I think that this is true about filmic statements in general and of Kiarostami in particular. So in our case, while the film statement may be lying on the narrative level or on the level of the story, the enunciation, it's here is always truthful. So it's a misunderstanding of the enunciative function of film to not recognize that the statement, here is a revolver or here is a house, of the image remains such whether or not it declares on the narrative level, namely the poetic entity, that this is not the friend's house. If the image shows us a boy or a house, its dialectics are saying here is a boy and here is a house. And it is the boy's narrative function to modify the enunciative poetically by identifying that this is the friend's house. So this occulted enunciative level, I will get to SHIRIN, this occulted enunciative level of the filmic statement, which according to Christian Metz is unconscious, is a haunting, which like slips of tongue and slips of pen and other fumbles and parapraxis, is evidence of an unconscious operation of the psyche in everyday life, breaks through onto the landscape of the filmic as well, to announce dialectically, or more to the point reflexively, the film's relationship to the real. So in other words, a film always breaks the story in order to tell us a story about itself as film, its own coming into being as film. And that is the enunciative level of the film. So as John Mowat, for example, writes about Godard, when the filmic statement is conveyed through the depiction of a message-conveying device, say the rolled up poster in the extended apartment scene between Michael and Patricia in Breathless, it reflexively operates not merely to foreground the cinematic apparatus. In other words, when we see the poster, we don't only think about the filmic apparatus itself that is recording the scene, but we also think about the history of technical reproducibility of art and the way in which this history joins both lithography, the poster, and the film as part of the statement of the film. Add to this, say, the sound of the radio in the same scene, and what we have is a mass of statements from the perspective of the Annunciation that talks about the unlivability of heterosexual relations, acted upon and associatively nuanced by multiple enunciative instances, none of which can neatly be bent to the task of signaling, as Metz would have it, the work of cinema as such. It's not that such work isn't being done, but that the reflective signals are split both internally and externally and rooted through a collective assemblage that situates cinema in relation to other media and also in all of which form a matrix from which to derive the statements that we now understand the film to be making. Thus it is with the clip that we saw from The Journey. Billboards, movie posters, peep shows, photographs pile up everywhere. The boy in search of his parents is ensconced in a world of primal images that are the film's own. We see Sergei Eisenstein's steps, Murnau's architecture, Louis Buñuel's Crippled Man, John Ford's Wheels. And here, too, in this world, we see laborers asleep in demolished buildings. We see then that this no place of Henri Corbin's imaginal world, this occulted world within, to which Joan Kopchak refers us in Kiarostami, is also the modernizing Iran, where robotic workers mushroom along the boy's path and where hazard zones and scrapyards suggest a culture caught in the drift, one in which an already withering modernity is replacing other cultural forms. So there's a whole lot more to be said about this, but I am going to get to SHIRIN. So what I will say that this reading of the enunciative reflexivity of a shot applies as much to a long shot as it would to a close-up. And so it is in Kiarostamis SHIRIN as well. And it is to this film, which is replete with close-ups, that I'm going to turn to bring home this discussion of the enunciative and its repercussions for understanding Kiarostami's film. Abbas Kiarostami made SHIRIN in 2008. It's a feature-length film that is composed entirely of close-ups of women watching a Persian epic that we, the audience of SHIRIN, do not see. This subtraction of the reverse shot in SHIRIN has lots to do with filmic enunciation as well, but I want to bracket that discussion to focus on the close-ups themselves, the close-ups that we do see. In SHIRIN, Kiarostami gathers over 110 of Iran's leading film and stage actresses and the Oscar-winning French actress Juliette Binoche to serve as the film's on-screen audience in close-up. None of SHIRIN's characters are named, and each actor appears as herself as she sits silently before the unfolding drama on the screen before her. Kiarostami actually made a trial run of this project for the 60th anniversary of the Cannes Film Festival. He paired the close-ups of that he made for SHIRIN to the soundtrack of a production of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. He called this short, "Where Is My Romeo?" And I'd like to play a 3-minute clip from that film so that you have a sense of what it would feel like to watch SHIRIN in English. The camera in Kiarostami's SHIRIN dwells on the faces of the actors as they weep and smile and bite their lip and fiddle in their seats as spectators for a full 90 minutes, all the while we, as the film's audience, hear an off-screen rendition of the Persian love story Khosrow and Shirin. In her book on Kiarostami, Joan Kopchik points out that while the action on the unseen screen may occasion the women's affective encounter, it is not the cause of the women's of what the women actively see. Their look is situative, she writes, but I wonder if situative in the Jean-Paul Sartrean sense, does this situation not call into the image the entire web of relations, the whole entire system of Iranian cinema? Their active look, she says, is inward turning, ignited, no doubt, by what is transporting them or transpiring within themselves. Joan Kopchik underscores, and as I read this and watch Shirin, I weigh if I could actually bring myself to overlook one critical fact, and that is a critical historical fact, which is that the auteur, Abbas Kiarostami, spent an entire career working with non-actors to derive and master exactly such inward-turning emotions. So Kiarostami never was in need of trained actors for his films to be spectacular, for his actors and his audience to feel precisely what he wanted to convey. So to assemble a sizable group of legends, veteran actors, post-revolutionary stars, and contemporary film icons in one film, and to do so in close-up, isn't that mere fact an invitation for us not to just read the affective register, which we do in close-ups anyway, that's the function of the close-up, for which operates to register the emotion on the narrative level for our narrative pleasure, but to consider perhaps more intently how this enunciative register opens his frame to the world of primal images that situate the film's own images, to have us ask ourselves reflectively, as these actresses mirror our situation in the filmic theater, in the film theater, if these women, as spectators, are watching legends, who are the legends that we are watching in Shirin? So I want to start by introducing some of the legends that we will be seeing in Shirin. Born in 1972, Hediye Tehrani served as Shirin's casting director. She's an award-winning star who began her acting career with the new wave auteurs, and in particular, Masoud Kimiai's 1996 feature film Sultan. Now, for those of you who have watched Bread and Alley, you will see that this scene is from the film Sultan is very much reminiscent of Kiarostami's first short film. Hamideh Khairabadi, often called the mother of Iranian cinema and lovingly by her stage name Nadere, Khairabadi played in over 200 feature films and 20 TV series, worked with all of the notable Iranian authors, Iranian New Wave authors, among them Masoud Kimiai and Dariush Merchoui. She worked with Ali Hatami and Tahmin Milani and Mohsen Makhmalbaf, as well as several other prominent post-revolutionary filmmakers. Here she is in Ali Hatami's Madar, or Mother, made in 1991, where she is with her character's siblings practicing elementary school dictation while bearing witness to their mother's death. Niku Kharadmand, an actress and dubber for many films and television series, started her career as a radio announcer in 1958 and became the iconic voice of Ava Gardner for the Hollywood films that were dubbed into Persian. She made her first film debut with The Last Curtain in 1991. Azita Hajian earned her degree in acting and theater in 1975, and she moved to the stage in 1990. Her remarkable performance in Ruban Qermez, or Red Ribbon, won her the Best Actress Award at the 1991 Iranian Fajr Film Festival. The film also received the Golden Shell at San Sebastian International Film Festival, and today she works as an acting instructor in the 2017 melodrama Under the Smoky Roof. She plays the role of an analyst for a family that is in trouble. Let me show you a quick scene from that as well. That's Azita Hajian. Jale Olov is a well-known actress from the golden age of Iranian films, and she was the voice of many beloved characters in the Persian language versions of Walt Disney's films Cinderella, Pinocchio, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, and 101 Dalmatians, as well as numerous films and television series. Of the post-revolutionary stars, there is Niki Karimi, who some of you may know. She began her career in the 1980s and has played many key roles in early post-revolutionary films and served as Kiarostami's assistant. She translated Hanif Qureshi's Intimacy and also Marlon Brando's biography into Persian. She served as a jury member at international film festivals all over the world. I want to show you a clip from her from a film that was directed by the feminist director Tahmine Milani in 2001. It's a feature film called The Hidden Half, and she plays one of several revolutionary women who is a little unsteady about her commitment to the communist organization that she serves currently. It should be noted that this film landed the film director herself, Tahmine Milani, in the Revolutionary Court for several weeks before she could post bail. So here is Niki Karimi in The Hidden Half. There is Fatemeh Mottahedeh, who started off in theater, and along with Niki Karimi became one of the most significant actors of the post-revolutionary years. She was nominated for and won the Crystal Simorgh, an award for Best Actress for a number of her films at the Fajr International Film Festival. So this is Fatemeh Mottahedeh in one of her recent performances in a film called African Violet. There are also many contemporary film icons in SHIRIN, among them Golshifte Farahani, who started off her career as a musician and an actress, and because of her activism in Iranian political movements, she became persona non grata and is currently living in France. She took her first role for the screen at the age of 14 in Dariush Mehrdoui's 1998 film, The Pear Tree, and she has since appeared in Farhadi's About Eli, which I will show a trailer for in just a few minutes. She's also appeared on stage as Anna Karenina in Paris and in Jim Jarmusch's Patterson. Here she is in Asghar Farhadi's About Eli, which is set in northern Iran, where a group of friends have gone vacationing. Eli, who's a school teacher, has traveled up to the Caspian with them, and she suddenly disappears. And finally, Eli herself, played by Taraneh Ali Dost, who is known internationally as the lead actress of Asghar Farhadi's Oscar-winning The Salesman. I'll show her award-winning performance in this clip about Ali. That makes 10 of the characters in SHIRIN, and there is a little over 90 others in this film, in this tableau of grand dames, of stars, stage actors, dubbers, radio personalities, auteurs, musicians, movie directors, and other important workers within the Iranian film industry, all women who together built the world, the film industry, in which Kiarostamis films were birthed, and to which, in SHIRIN, his film claims its belonging. I hope that you enjoy this film.
All right. We have a little bit of time to discuss the film afterwards, maybe process the film together a little bit with Negar. So anyone who wants to stick around for Q&A, do so, and anyone who wants to head home, also welcome. We have a roving mic here for questions from the audience, but I might start off with a few questions myself. First of all, a couple of weeks ago we saw 10. Film kind of preceding this by a few years, but I feel like both 10 and then I think really in particular SHIRIN, the films focus on female subjectivity, let's say, perhaps something that was underdone in his career up until this point, or that was, it's often been noticed a lot of his films prior to the 2000s taking place in very male-dominated worlds. And here we have the exact opposite. Do you think, is Kiarostami trying to, I don't want to say compensate, but is he what's causing this interest, I guess, in particular this kind of female subjectivity at this point in his career?
Well, actually, the year that 10 came out, I think the year that 10 came out, I wrote a piece called "Where Are Kiarostami's Women?" And because there just weren't any in his films, or at least there were distant figures. And to me, actually,
so he was responding to your article. Then, is this what you're trying to say?
I thought so. And recently I saw a short film that was made a couple of years after the Iranian Revolution, and it's about a grandfather who is supposed to take care of his granddaughter, and he takes out his hearing aid
Mm-hmm.
To have lunch, and so he doesn't hear her ring the bell. And so she calls all of her girlfriends. All of them are coming home from school, and they stand outside of the door and they call on him to open the door until finally he gets up and sees and hears. And I actually think that was a that all of these films were a response to the repression, I guess, of the female voice and the visual image from cinema after the revolution. So, he would represent Khomeini, and the girls would represent the women who are calling on him to, hey.
Okay, it's an interesting reading. I maybe want to ask, I guess what's interesting about this film also is the fact that they're watching basically a melodrama.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of theories of melodrama in film studies. Linda Williams in particular, I think, notably focusing on the part of what makes melodrama a unique genre, but also sometimes a kind of disreputable genre, is the fact that it elicits such a bodily response from the viewer that we burst out into tears when watching a melodrama. And we see this happen on the screen. I was wondering if you had any thoughts about, I mean, also what it's like for the spectator to see this kind of, the image of women crying in front of a movie screen?
What does it feel like?
Yeah, I mean, well,
What does it
work? How does it work on us to see this from the? I mean, we're in a sense peering at these women from behind the movie screen while they're watching this film. There's a very famous scene in Vivre sa vie by Godard where Anna Karina is shown kind of crying while watching Jeanne d'Arc by Dreyer. I'm not sure if that's a deliberate reference here, but it has a very strange, I mean, I felt like it has a very strange effect on us as spectators to see this. It's not normally something you see frontally, let's say, someone crying while watching a movie.
Yeah, I mean, what struck me really in this viewing was that we were, in fact, watching an epic, right? Mm-hmm. And the way that epics often work is that they are marked by the births and deaths and marriages and divorces, and it's like a chronicle. And it just, to me watching these women was to watch the cycle of life, more so than responding to someone's tears or laughter. I mean, there was a lot of different things, lots of emotion, and it just felt like. To me, it felt like Kiarostami was bringing the entirety of life, like the whole, the whole cycle of birth and death, Earth's history, and with that also cinema's history, and in particular, Iranian cinema's history, and his place within it.
Yeah. Is there? I mean, could you tell us a little bit about this film as well in terms of like its cultural resonance in Iran, because for an international audience it'll be not so well known, but I mean, is this an immediate reference point for an Iranian audience?
I mean, the epic obviously is.
Yeah, but the film adaptation as well, or the
film adaptation, I don't know. That I don't know. Okay. But
the story is kind of
the story is known, so you
reference.
Can kind of zone out and just watch the women.
Yeah.
And their responses.
I want to ask a little bit maybe about the production as well, or the filmmaking technique, because what we hear is the soundtrack of the film, but it's not, as far as I can tell, not the soundtrack of the film as if it were playing in the movie theater, because it's a very clean soundtrack. It's kind of laid on top of the...
the women are not hearing it.
They're not hearing it.
They're in fact not hearing anything.
Yeah.
They're just sitting in his living room looking at light.
Okay, yeah.
And the movement of light.
Yeah, and this is, in a sense, I mean, we're watching actresses kind of at the height of their craft, in a sense. Right, particularly this is also almost a cliche of like the hardest thing to do as an actor is like kind of just cry on command or whatever, and this is something that's happening here, not because they're so moved by the film, but actually this is like the kind of, let's say, the craft of acting at work. I don't know, I felt like there was also something about seeing the mechanisms of acting in this film that we can relate to it on one hand, as we do with every film, as to characters, but also to the kind of actors or the actresses in particular.
Bearing witness to their craft.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
As true actors. But also bearing witness to his craft. Mm-hmm. His capacity to bring out emotion, which he has, as I mentioned, that's what he's done his entire career with non-actors. So this is not very difficult. It's not a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah. We can throw it to the audience now if there's questions from the crowd. We have a mic here. Does anyone have questions, comments, remarks? Yes, Misha, I'll bring my mic over so you can say something.
I wonder if there's a correspondence between the epic story and also the movie. If I understood, then in the story there is an artist who is so powerful to create an image, a tasvir, which has a power to make Shirin fall in love with the image, not only with the image, with the real person, and vice versa. In the film, we see an audience who who's watching a movie which is crafted so well that they shed tears and that they become completely involved and immersed in the emotional power of the movie.
Yeah, bearing witness to the craft of the filmmaker, the director, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Further questions or comments? There's also something very, I don't know, as a spectator, I went through a lot of different, ways of relating to the film, let's say. Sometimes I felt very invasive as a spectator or something, or that I was violating a space I shouldn't be violating.
Because it was a close-up.
Because of the close-ups, and it's really too much. Yeah, in a sense, I'm kind of in a space I'm not necessarily or that they're not necessarily consenting to, or something. I don't know. It felt there's sometimes an uneasiness on the part of myself as a spectator seeing this. But I don't know if you have thoughts here as well.
Well, I mean, I think that this is. I think part of the difficulty of watching the film is that it is yet another one of his cinemas of subtraction, right? Mm-hmm. He has subtracted the reverse shot, and we're so used to being relieved by seeing what the person is seeing in a conversation. You are relieved from the close up of one face by seeing the other, but this one just holds you there in the shot. Yeah. With the actresses without ever getting to see what they're seeing and being relieved in a sense. So I think that is that causes a lot of difficulty. And also, these are shots that were forbidden by Iranian cinema since the revolution. The close-ups of women were absent for several years after the revolution by the command of the government. Yeah. So this is the kind of the missing shot of Iranian cinema. These are the missing shots. Yeah. I think that, one other thing is, these are often very beautiful women, if I may say so. Just you're kind of in the presence of this beauty, it's almost too much at times or something. I don't know. I felt so, at least. But I don't know. People's mileage may vary. Anyone's welcome to jump in from the audience. I don't want this just to be a dialogue between two of us. Yes, Arash up the back here. There's a mic that you can speak into.
Just want to say that, obviously, so this is the who's who of Iranian women in cinema. It's a massive galaxy of Iranian cinema. These are all the well-known, Iranian women Iranian cinema, plus Juliette Binoche. Obviously, only someone like Kiarostami, at the height of his career, could do something like that. If a young filmmaker said, "Hey, I have an idea, I'm going to get all of you and you sit in a movie theater and you watch a film and you cry," they'll, probably tell him to get lost. So there is something, I don't know, how to think about it. At the time when it came out in Iran, obviously sort of people, some said it was self-indulgent. Some people said, well, you didn't cast, woman stories in your films for so long, and now you have this spectacle. But I guess the question is, how do you relate it to where it stands in Kiarostami's career, right? That when you get as big as he had by then, 2008, right? So this is 10 years after the Palm and everything. You just get to do things cast all the most famous women Iranian cinema, in a film without, such an unconventional experimental film. So you do it just because you can, right? Is it, or is it as I would argue, this is a hats off to them, to all the women who made this cinema possible. This is the industry that we don't see, or haven't given credit to. It was fun sitting up there with you
You know, because every few minutes you would fall asleep or wake up from sleep and you go, oh, there's so and so and there's so and so, and it has that function on those of us who have watched, Iranian cinema over the years. Haven't seen her for ages. Oh my God, she moved to France. Oh, she's in Germany. She doesn't have a job. It's something. But I think also, what is really interesting in this film, which is so simple, is that he brings in all of the other things that he's done in other films. Like, for example, Close Up, right? Where he plays with sound. And it's through sound that we relate, for example, to Mahmalbaf and the fake Mahmalbaf. Right, we see them in a long shot. So it's or in The Wind Will Carry Us, where we don't see 11 of the characters, but we hear them in outside of the car window, for example, or in the ditch, or in the darkness of a cellar. So it brings in all of those tricks to this very simple film, and that also shows where he is in his career right now, or at the time of the making of the film.
Can I ask about Binoche? Because he then goes on to make Certified Copy, obviously with her pretty soon afterwards. Yeah. But I don't know, is this... a cynic would say this is maybe stunt casting or something.
Or just a friend?
Or just a friend. That's the more
I would say so.
The less cynical among us would say she's a friend. But she plays... I mean, in the context of the film, unless you know that's Julia Binoche, she's not like highlighted or something, right? She just kind of pops up there. And it's kind of dressed as an Iranian woman would also be dressed. I mean, like, why put in Binoche? Do you think it's just an act of friendship on Kiarostami's part? Is it for the marketing?
No, I think it's definitely, she was just visiting. Mm-hmm. He cast her. Yeah. You're here, you are in my living room. Why don't we take a few shots of you? Yeah. What do you guys think? I mean, maybe I'm not cynical enough.
Bring the mic over.
Thank you. You said that he does in this film with these actresses what he did before with non-professional actors. But I see a big difference. This feels completely artificial in my eyes because it's an artificial situation. Not one of these women is ever coughing or yawning or whispering to her neighbor, or none of them wear spectacles. So this is completely artificial and feels phony after a while. At least it did for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something could be artificial without necessarily being phony. And I mean, so many of Kiarostami's films play with artifice and the boundary, or the fluid boundaries between artifice and reality.
Did you believe that they were watching a movie? No. Oh, okay. All right. Well, then he didn't succeed at all, right? Because he does this with, what I was thinking about was that he does things with non-actors, like he makes children cry, but it's not over what it is that we're seeing happening in the film, but over something else, right? They're crying not because a tooth is being removed, but because he said something really nasty to them, which he does, or
yeah. But he creates then the sense of reality through those kind of artificial gestures,
right?
In a sense, but. Yeah, for me, I kind of, maybe for me it was very oscillating in terms of sometimes I was in the film, let's say, and then other times I was more marveling at the actors, kind of, their craft or whatever. So there's a kind of, I think.
And I think that he would take that as a compliment, and that I think that in a Kiarostami film you are supposed to fall asleep. I
always say when you fall asleep in the middle of a film, first of all, it's a sign that it's a good film. And secondly, when you wake up, the first image you see will be the most beautiful image you've seen in your life. But we have a question here. I'll bring my mic up.
Yeah, I do have a question. I was thinking about the story, and in the story you would not see inequality between Shirin and Khosrow and Farhad, because Shirin was also Prince of Armenia, and in the story you would see that she has power, she is in charge of the people, you know. But the idea that focusing on the tears of the woman put some marks or brands on the movie that, okay, this movie is from feminism point of view. And do you see it a paradox, or how do you see it? I mean, because when there is some inequalities between men and women, then the idea of feminism or equal rights would be clear. But here in this movie, I think that the director wanted to, the same thought of you, that wanted to compensate, for example, something for the women and then put this in the cinema. What do you think about that? I mean,
that it was a compensation for the fact that he didn't have a lot of females in his films, you're saying?
Yeah, but the story...
Yeah, but why not make her queen?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
Alex.
Love story. It's a love story rather than a true epic, right? And in that sense, and this is why you're saying that it's more of a melodrama. Except there is the hand of destiny, and I don't know if melodrama has that.
I feel like melodrama
is about destiny. I always think melodrama is the absence of a god, or a god force. You know, that's how I think about melodrama. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, my question is kind of like going with this thought, because I was thinking that all these women were like reacting how the fictional film, the film in the film wanted them to react. So when something funny happened, they laughed or smirked, and when something sad happened, they all cried. And it was not like that some women were like, I don't know, in disbelief that she would like leave her kingdom and everything for a man. Or, I mean, not that this is the right reaction and there's a wrong reaction, but I think there would be like different reactions, especially if it's like a very old story and it's like in 2008, where like a lot of different kinds of feminisms have emerged. So yeah, I was really wondering, what do you think of the reactions always in sync with the film?
Well, what would you think if you knew? What would you think about this question if you knew that they didn't know what he was filming? Would that make a difference to you?
Well, I mean, the question emerged when I watched the film, so I didn't think how it was produced, just like how they react.
Yeah. I don't think that they knew what they were filming.
Yeah.
And in fact, they weren't hearing what we were hearing. And so I think that what you were witnessing in terms of the flow of the emotions was a function of the editing. And so then I wonder, you know, how would that change the way that you think about the film? You know?
Yeah, I think I would like... It feels like a strong choice to edit it that way, that there's always like the right reaction to what is shown in the film. And I feel like it would... I'm not saying that it's like that it would be better if it were different, but I feel like it's a deliberate choice that there's always the right reaction. Every woman is crying when something sad happens. Everyone is feeling with the lover, but it's not like, oh, why is she doing that?
Obviously, I don't have an answer. This is why I asked you a question.
Thank you.
Further questions? Yes. Okay, back to Michelle.
I have two questions. One question about the situation in Iran, and the other about the story. The situation in Iran, is it correct if I understand it that it would be illegal for women to not cover their face in public, but when the lights are out in the cinema, then it would be illegal for women to not cover their face, and so the women, they can sit there with their faces not covered, but if the light goes on, or if they would leave the cinema hall, then they would risk a fine if they wouldn't cover their face. And the story,
Right now, I guess things are different.
yeah,
But, I mean,
in 2008, yeah.
2008.
Hmm.
2008. What would you say? Yeah,
Depends on the area, maybe.
yeah, I think.
North of Tehran or
Yeah,
so.
north of Tehran, maybe it would be easier to get away with it, than in the country, in the rural areas. Yeah. No, but he was also saying, like, would they take off their headscarves in the theater? Some people do, some people don't, and and it's also different in different periods. Who's in power, who's president at the time, and I think it was 2008 was kind of risky, actually.
And the story, I would like to think that it is a pre-modern story. Like, there's no reference to religion, so you wouldn't know if it's Islamic time or pre-Islamic time. Probably it's pre-Islamic time.
Yeah.
Armenia would be a Christian country, and Iran would be different religion. But religion is not an issue, even between the princess and the king. So I would like to think that this is a story which an audience would, maybe also the actresses, the women, which they might know. So Kiarostami could tell them it's about this story, which maybe people have heard when they were children, and then it's not necessary that a movie exists, because it's a story which everybody knows, like stories from 1000 Nights or something.
Yeah, or like Faust or Romeo and Juliet or Othello, or we know these stories because we've heard them or we've seen them in different versions on stage.
All right, I think that's all we have time for.
Okay.
It's getting late, so we'll let you all get back home. Thank you once again to Negar Mottahedeh for a delightful evening with
all of you.
Kiarostamis SHIRIN. For students of the Goethe University, Negar will be on campus tomorrow at 10 a.m. for a seminar. Students are all welcome to that. And for everyone, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time with Dorks Bunyan on The Wind Will Carry Us. So, yeah, so see you in a couple of weeks for the next installment of Abbas Kiarostami's films.